The others like temperature regulation. The liver is also important in temperature regulation. It can produce a lot of heat during coldness, for example. The others, like it stores a lot of blood. The liver stores a lot of blood because we said it carries out very many functions. So, but the only functions we talked about that are within our notes are those that are related with the nutrition, the absorption, the utilization of the absorbed food. So today we are going to look at digestion in herbivores. And our target is that really today we should complete nutrition in animals. So if I may ask if you can remember, what are herbivorous, girls? What are herbivores? Any who can give us what herbivorous animals are? Yes,
Herbivorous animals that feed on vegetation.
That feed on vegetation, feed on plant materials. And so these herbivorous animals, they have a problem of getting food from those vegetation because of cellulose. These animals do not produce an enzyme called cellulase. They need an enzyme cellulase to break down the cellulose that is found within those plant materials. And so because of that, they in their alimentary canal, in their stomachs, along the digestive tract, they have bacteria. There are other microorganisms like fungi, like protozoans, that are very important in producing the enzyme cellulase. It is this enzyme cellulase that is able to digest cellulose. It will catalyze the digestion of cellulose so that it can be into glucose. But also when the cellulose has been broken down, then other food nutrients that are within the cells of the plant cells, other nutrients that are required, like the proteins and the lipids that are within the plant cells themselves, are able to be used by the herbivorous animals. So these cellulase, they have got the microorganisms, the most common ones being the bacteria that live in a symbiotic relationship called mutualism within these herbivorous animals. The function of these microorganisms, their function is to produce enzyme cellulase that will digest cellulose so that it can be converted to glucose. Remember, cellulose is one of the polysaccharides of carbohydrates, whose monosaccharides are glucose units. So let's read through this. Who is reading through for us through this paragraph?
Animals that depend on plant materials, herbivores like leaves, wood, grass, are faced with the problem of digesting the cellulose that make up the plant walls. It is necessary to break down cellulose into glucose and also break through the cellulose to release the inside cell nutrients, which are required by the herbivores. These herbivores cannot secrete the enzyme cellulase, which catalyzes the digestion of cellulose to glucose. Some microorganisms live in the guts of these herbivores in a harmless beneficial nutrition called mutualism. They secrete the enzyme cellulase that catalyzes the digestion of cellulose to glucose in the guts of these animals.
Okay, Thank you very much. These microorganisms, you studied the functions of bacteria and fungi. They have both positive and the negative functions. The economic importance. You looked at the economic importance. So one of the economic importance of the bacteria, for example, is the mutualistic association between herbivorous animals and the bacteria themselves. The bacteria, they benefit by, first of all, being hosted, they get shelter, but two, they also get nutrients. They feed on the glucose after the plants have taken in the plant material and it is digested. Then they also benefit by feeding on that carbohydrate. So that such kind of association is referred to as mutualism, a symbiotic type of digestion. Now, among these herbivorous animals, we have the special ones, the ruminants. These ruminants, these are the herbivorous animals that chew cud. And the most important point here is that they have the stomach divided into 4 chambers. The stomach alone. The first one is the rumen. Let's look at this colored one. Yes, please.
The card.
What is the card? What is the card? Any students would like to tell us what card is?
Yes. Teacher, card
Teacher, me.
Yes, please.
Card is the food that the ruminants bring back and chew again.
Okay, yes. The partially chewed plant material, which is the animal, let's say the cows, they keep on taking in the grass into the stomach, but later it is partially crushed, it is partially chewed, but later it is taken back into the mouth for proper chewing. That is the cud. You can see the rumen is very large because that's where the grass is now stored as it is taken to the stomach. Then the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum, the four parts of the stomach. Someone again reads for us through this text so that we follow. Because someone was asking that. Yes, please read through.
digestion in ruminants. Ruminants are mammals which chew cud. Cud is imperfectly or incompletely chewed grass or plant materials that are taken into the stomach or rumen and later returned back to the mouth for further chewing through a process called regurgitation. Ruminants have a stomach made up of 4 chambers, namely rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum.
And abomasum. Thank you very much. That process of taking back food from the rumen into the mouth for chewing is referred to as regurgitation, so that it is properly chewed, and therefore it can easily be worked on by the enzyme cellulase. Remember, we said this enzyme cellulase will be produced by the bacteria or any other microorganisms, which are usually fungi. They can be some protozoans, they can be bacteria, and they are usually found in the cecum. A lot of that microorganism is found in the cecum, but you can also have some in the rumen. So this cellulose, this plant material, and the cud as it moves towards the colon, towards the small intestines, it must be first be broken down by that bacteria. The most important part also that you need to know is that at the end of the fourth part of the stomach, where we have got small intestines, then digestion proceeds properly as we have seen in human beings. Because in the abomasum, for example, it is where you have now the pepsin now working on we have got the pepsin that will work on the proteins that are found within the plant cells, changing them to peptides. So the rest of the digestion is as in man, but at first, the first part, the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, this is about these 4 types of stomach. Their function is to make sure that the grass is chewed properly, crushed, so that digestion later by the cereals can easily take place. Usually in the mouth of these ruminants, there is no any enzyme that carries out digestion. They don't have amylase. What's there is only chewing and softening of food, and it also passes through the gullet by peristalsis, just like in human beings. And it is within the rumen that you find the bacteria that produces the cellulase that will break down cellulose to glucose. Of course, we know the function of glucose. Any other person, again, to read through for us this paragraph? These are two points.
In the mouth, the saliva does not contain any enzyme, so only chewing and softening of food takes place. The food moves through the esophagus by peristalsis, wave-like motion to the rumen. In the rumen, the cud is mixed with the bacteria, which secretes cellulase enzyme and catalyzes the breakdown of cellulose to glucose, which in turn is fermented to fatty acids. These fatty acids are absorbed into the blood through the rumen wall and are the major source of energy for ruminants. The fermentation produces carbon dioxide and methane, which are belched out.
Yes, thank you very much. In the rumen, the cud is mixed with the bacteria, and we have said it produced by the cellulase. This glucose is further fermented. The glucose within the stomach can further be changed into fatty acids, or even ethanoic acid. It can be changed into all those acids, and those acids are the major sources of energy. But also glucose itself can be broken down. But for these ruminants, they usually use fatty acids. And in the process, fermentation, because the glucose takes a lot, and these carbohydrates takes a lot of time within the stomach, there is a fermentation that takes place, and of course, there is bacteria. So fermentation takes place, and they form carbon dioxide, which should be passed out. Last time, someone actually mentioned to ask how puffing is done, how is it formed. We have found out that if you are taking food, if you are eating food very fast, hurriedly, opening the mouth very fast, you take in a lot of gas, taking a lot of oxygen, taking a lot of carbon dioxide, taking a lot of nitrogen. It is the cause of the accumulation of gas in the stomach, but in addition, as the food stays in the stomach, once it stays for some time, it also ferments. And during the fermentation process, it produces the carbon dioxide and the methane. And so, and also urea can be formed, and the ammonia can be formed. And so these gases are the ones which are accumulating in the stomach, and they must be passed out. It may not necessarily that you are sick, may not necessarily indicate that you are sick, but it may indicate just the uneasiness. And feel free to release the gas. I know sometimes it is not comfortable, but feel free to release the gas. So similarly, there is a lot of gas in these animals, and they usually pass it out. Do we have questions? Yes, please. Ask, unmute yourself and ask.
In the rumen, does the rumen have like two separate passages where the food can pass, where the food that is going into the reticulum and that is going back to the mouth to be chewed, where they pass, or do they all use the same passage?
Yes, when it is within from the rumen, as it is passing through the reticulum. The reticulum has got a mechanism. There is a way it is built within the body that it allows only a very fine card, very properly chewed card to go through into the omasum, the very fine one. And therefore, the one which is not very fine, it is taken back into the rumen, and it is back into the mouth. So it is the reticulum that controls what will proceed to other parts of the stomach, so that the grass or the plant material which has not been fully chewed will be taken back for rechewing. Otherwise, the stomach doesn't have two parts. It has only one part where the grass is stored and taken back for chewing. When it is taken back for chewing, then properly, then that's when it will come back to the reticulum to proceed. I don't know whether I have answered your question, but it has a mechanism. It has a mechanism of separating the properly chewed and the unchewed plant material.
Just so they can't mix. If the reticulum is the one that controls the card going and the well-chewed food going, and it's before the rumen, doesn't the rumen get confused and takes back?
Doesn't the rumen get confused? Remember, there are contractions. They are contractions of the stomach. So once the stomach contracts, the card that is properly chewed is the one which is able to pass through the reticulum. The one which is not properly chewed, it goes back into the rumen. So it is a mechanism that is well. If you have been eating the bienda, the offals, these intestines, the reticulum is that part which consists of as if they are layers, and a bit rough, as if they are layers and a bit rough, so that it is able to separate as if they are layers. If you have ever slaughtered a goat, I don't think you have slaughtered one. It is arranged one layer on the top of the other, one layer on the top of the other, so that it is able to separate the properly chewed card and the one which is not yet properly chewed. And so as the stomach contracts, then the properly chewed card proceeds to the omasum. The one which is not properly chewed goes back to the reticulum. It is the reticulum then sends it back to the mouth for chewing. It is done automatically. It is these are involuntary activity. You don't even think about it. It's like blinking of the eye. it is done automatically within the stomach. Any other question?
Yes, excuse me, teacher.
Mm.
I was asking that when the food is brought back to the mouth, doesn't it contain the enzymes and the bacteria, or it's separated from the lunch is taken?
Yes, it may contain some. It may contain some bacteria. In that case, the bacteria that are there will be destroyed. It can be destroyed, but remember, there is a lot of bacteria within that stomach. So the little bacteria that is returned back may not affect the process of digestion. It may not affect the process of producing cellulase. Some little bacteria may return back with the card to the mouth.
And maybe also just a similar question, like for humans, why is it that like when we vomit, like it's hard for us to like take that vomit back? We just have to put it all out.
Why is it that we don't take it back?
Yes.
When we vomit, don't you think it comes out with a lot of force? When we vomit, does it come out slowly so that we put it in the mouth? You think we can store it in the mouth? It is not palatable because this mechanism does not occur in human beings. It is not very good. Usually in the stomach, once there is digestion taking place, there it mixes with many. First of all, there is some acid, there is some other secretions. Once it comes into the mouth, the taste is very bad. You can't keep it in the mouth. Straight away, you have to throw it away. So this mechanism does not occur in human beings.
Teacher, what are the gastric secretions in the abomasum?
What are the
gastric secretions in the abomasum?
Gastrication. Gastrication is the production of the gastric juice. Gastric juice, the abomasum, the true stomach. It is like that of human beings. And so it produces the gastric juice. And now this gastric juice, you remember, it has pepsin, it has HCl, it has all those secretions that are needed. So gastrication is the formation of the production of gastric juice that is needed for the digestion of the proteins. Remember, these plant materials, the plant cells also have proteins within the cells themselves. And they also have lipids, the oils, which should be digested. So once the food has reached the abomasum, which is the true stomach, then the digestion proceeds normally, just like in human beings.
Okay.
Okay, so someone should read for us through this text as well. Yes, please.
Rumination or chewing of cud is the process whereby newly eaten feed or food is returned to the mouth for further chewing. The fermented grass passes to the reticulum and is formed into balls, which is cud, which are returned to the mouth for further chewing. The reticulum also sieves out the hard materials and either retains them or sends them back to the mouth for further chewing. The contrast of the rumen and the reticulum help the flow of finer food particles into the next chamber, the omasum. In the omasum, much water is reabsorbed from the cud is then passed to the abomasum.
Okay, thank you. So you can see that word should be eaten, not a feed. We shall collect that one. You can see that the grass, once the cud which are formed, once it is not completely chewed, to will be returned back into the mouth through the rumen. Okay, someone was asking, once the food from the reticulum goes to the rumen, doesn't it now confuse? Now, when food, it is arranged in such a way that this arrangement of the stomach is in such a way that once the cat has returned the reticulum, it passes the upper part of the rumen. That card passes on the upper part of the rumen, so that it doesn't go into the bag. It doesn't go into the pouch of the rumen from the reticulum directly to the mouth, but from the upper part of the rumen, so that it can be properly be chewed. The omasum, in the omasum, there is a lot of absorption of water that takes place. A lot of water absorption takes place in the abomasum before the food proceeds to the abomasum.
I don't get tired of you disturbing me all the time.
You young girl, please mute yourself. You are making noise for us. In the omasum, where there is a gastric juice production that is important for the digestion of proteins, and it is where the complete digestion of these materials take place. Between the small intestines, there is also cecum. A cecum has got a lot of bacteria. It also has got a lot of microorganisms that proceeds with the digestion of the cud of the completely chewed grass that has got cellulase, which will digest all the carbohydrate into glucose. Interaction. Someone wants to ask a question? Yes. Daniela, please ask. Start capturing everything.
Teacher, does that fermented food, like as it's fermenting, does it have any side effects in that during the digestion process?
Fermentation. Fermentation does not necessarily produce harmful substances. Because they produce alcohol, ethanol, during fermentation, these carbohydrates. And this alcohol is not necessarily, it has some importance. So this fermentation, we have seen that it forms the fatty acids. It can also form some ethanoic acid. These acids are the compounds that are able to provide energy in these herbivorous animals. So fermentation in this process in the herbivorous animals, it is not very dangerous. It is actually very important because for them, these herbivorous animals, they get most of the energy from these acids, fatty acids, and the ethanoic acid.
Thank you, teacher.
Any other question?
Yes.
Mr. Bagambisa.
Yes, please.
Students is requesting that you repeat the reason as to why abomasum is the true stomach.
Okay. Okay. Why the abomasum is the true stomach? Just like in human beings, it has got glands. It has got glands, the gastric glands, that produce the gastric juice. This gastric juice, just like in human beings, it has got hydrochloric acid, it has got pepsin. Remember, in the stomach, because of the
Excuse me, students. If you do not mute yourself, we are going to mute everybody. We are getting feedback. Somebody's mic is not muted.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry for that.
So this abomasum has got the produces secretes gastric juice. This gastric juice got the pepsin and has also got the HCl. So it is this pepsin that digests, that catalyzes the digestion of the proteins that are within the cells of the plant material that has been taken, and so that it can form the peptides. So because it produces gastric juice, which has got all those components, in mucus, or what we would call mucin, water, it has got hydrochloric acid, it has got pepsin. All those are the components of the gastric juice, just like in human beings. So we refer to it as it is referred to as the true stomach of the ruminant animals. I don't know whether she has got it. Any other question?
Yes, excuse me, teacher. I was asking that, like, do cows let out a lot of methane? Because they say that methane is like dangerous to the environment. So, like, they let out a lot of methane, or it depends on the number of cows that you have, and then combine it to make a lot of methane.
It is little. It is little. This methane is little. In fact, if you get the cow dung and you keep it together with the urine, and you keep it in an enclosed place where there is then anaerobic respiration will continue taking place, and it produces this methane, which can be used as gas. It can also be used as gas for cooking, natural gas. So fermentation continue taking place. The amount of methane produced in this case, it is little, because the time taken for this gas to be formed is very short. The food stays for a short time. For this methane to be completely formed, you need maybe food to stay in the stomach for about a week. So once you get this cow dung, you mix it with the urine, keep it in a very well enclosed place, make a methane. There are people who are producing this gas naturally. People are making this gas, and they are collecting it into cylinders, and it is their business, or even at homes of some people. So it is due to fermentation. This gas, first of all, it is not very toxic to the body. It is not toxic to the body. It becomes harmless probably if it is burnt, because once it is burnt, real burning with oxygen, it produces heat which can burn. Other than that, it is not harmful to the body. But the amount formed is little. The amount formed is very little. Any other?
Teacher, can I add something there?
Yes, please.
Yes, what the teacher is saying is true. Depending on how many cows you're talking about, from one, of course, the amount is little, and then if you're looking at so many cows, then you get to realize that the amount that will be generated will be a lot. And the research actually reveals that animals contribute a lot to the effect of global warming world over. And there is that view that actually there is a need to reduce on animals being kept on farms and so on. Then number two, it is not only from cows that we can get methane, even human beings. The poo that comes from us, when it is collected, sealed, as the teacher explained, then we can always generate methane. And some schools already making use of that. They are collecting poo from the toilet, and then connect it to fermenter, or put it in a fermentation chamber. And then it produces the gas, the methane, which they use for cooking and so on. So we can take advantage of that. And then somebody earlier on asked about the process of fermentation. Basically, yeah, fermentation, we could look at it as a way of breaking down the food substances. So it is a positive here, as the teacher explained. And then the right term to use, technical term that we can use for food being brought back to the mouth is to regurgitate. So if you don't want to use that mouthful statement, and then you can talk about food being regurgitated from the almost back to the mouth. And then the last one, the major difference between non-ruminants and ruminants is in the first three chambers. Like what the teacher explained, the last chamber, which is a equivalence of our own stomach. So let's remember that it is the first three chambers of the stomach that make these ruminants different from us. What happens in there is lacking in what happens in non-ruminants. Thank you, Mr. Bagambisa. There are three more hands, maybe you can pick them, then we continue.
Okay, thank you very much, Sabino. Any other? And yes, then the question, please, unmute yourself and ask.
Now there are two.
Teacher, you see how goats like eat plastics? Doesn't that affect their digestion?
Sorry, repeat the question.
When goats eat plastic, doesn't that affect their digestion?
Oh yeah, when goats eat plastics, because these plastics cannot be digested. When they eat plastics like a polythene bag, the cavera, it can actually die if it goes and really ties itself around the reticulum. The animal can die, whether a goat or whether a cow. So it is very dangerous. It is not proper. I'm not sure whether there is any treatment for it or how you can know. I'm not very sure. Probably agriculture could be knowing whether.
Depending on the amount, of course, it cannot be digested. If it is a lot of polythene, that's like what you said, it is going to interfere with the digestion and then a passage of food through. In most cases, such animals end up dying. But if it is a little, then it can be forced together with the rest of the undigested food material to come out. So those of you who have farms at home, please, where the animals are grazing, make sure that you remove any polythene in the grazing area. It is not allowed and it is not safe.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So you have it is not digested, but it can come out as indigestible material. Was another question?
Kelo, I think that's the last one.
Teacher.
Okay.
Daniela, go ahead.
Teacher, so in the event that any of our 4 stomach chambers stop working, is there like a substitute for that stomach? Or it has entirely disorganized that digestive process?
It has disorganized the digestive process. If it is completely destroyed, if it has an issue, then the animal will die. But usually these animals are usually treated. They are usually treated because we have said there is a lot of bacteria. During this treatment, they are usually also vaccinated. During this vaccination, many of these bacteria and viruses that enter the animal are killed, so they don't disorganize those 4 chambers of the stomach. Otherwise, once if one cannot completely work, then the process cannot take place. The animal will die. Let's proceed with the nutrition in the molds. What are molds? Can you remind us what are the molds?
Teacher, can I try?
Yes, please.
Molds, these are like microorganisms that are found on fermenting food substances like milk, like bread and
That's true. In which group of organisms do they belong?
fungi.
Yes, they belong the group of fungi. Kingdom of fungi. They are found on composing organic matter, like bread, as you have said, like food. These molds, you can see there must be water. There must be water. If there is no water, they will also germinate, but they will not germinate fully. They will not grow properly. You will not be able to see the structures properly. And the common mold is the rhizopus. These molds, they have hyphae and the root-like structures called rhizoids. This type of digestion in these animals, in this group of organisms, these are not animals. In these fungi,
United Nations Education and Science Company Organization.
Who is it?
Where
Who is that one? Okay, these molds produce, they secrete enzyme onto the bread. They secrete enzyme. Digestion takes place externally. It secretes enzyme to the substrata, the food that is being digested. So they have got external digestion, and then after digested, the nutrients are absorbed. They are absorbed by the hyphae into the structure of the mold. So they have external digestion. The key point here to note is that first of all, they feed on decomposing organic matter. 2, they release the enzyme onto the decomposing organic matter. Then food is born, digestion takes place, then it is absorbed. So it always absorbs digested food nutrients. It does not take it into its body structure. Can someone read through for us this part?
Teacher, can I read?
Yes,
Is
please.
a common saprophyte on moist organic matter. If a piece of bread or posture is moistened and kept damp for a few days, it will soon become covered with a growth of rhizopus bread mold. The mold spreads over the surface substrate, sending its hyphae inward to absorb the nutrients. It secretes digestive juices that contain enzymes directly on the food. These enzymes cause the food to become soluble, which it is then absorbed by the mold. The fungi secrete soluble, the fungi secrete enzymes that get into the food supply and digest it externally. It is known as external digestion. The digested food is then absorbed by a hyphae.
Yes, absorbed by the hyphae, an equivalent of roots in plants. And so it has got these mold, all the fungi, they have got external digestion, and that's how they carry out that process. The sugars that are usually absorbed, of course, they are the glucose, the way it is done in human beings. The carbohydrates are broken down into monosaccharides and disaccharides. So for them, they can even absorb disaccharides like the maltose, like glucose. And they are also able to store glycogen. If it is too much, if they have absorbed too much, then they can convert it into glycogen and store it into their body structure. Someone read for us through this.
The nutrition of mold like rhizopus is termed as absorptive since they absorb nutrients directly from the outside of their body. Sugar and starch are favored by the mold. So while growing on bread, the mold takes up nutrition from the carbohydrate compounds of the bread. Rhizopus stores many nutrients that it takes in as glycogen.
Stores many nutrients that it takes in as glycogen. So these are the structures. I hope you still remember the structure of the common mold, the rhizopus, common bread mold. The sporangium, you can see them properly under a microscope. There are some hand lenses that can magnify it, but you will not be able to see it properly. So under a microscope, you are able to see that structure. The sporangium, the sporangiophore, the stolon, the rhizoid. Rhizoids are specifically for the common mold. In some other fungi, we can call them the hyphae. This sporangium, as you can see, they have the spores. They are these spores. When it is mature, it bursts to release the spores. The spores are in the air, and there is a lot of fungal spores in the air. Air, water, in the soil, there is a lot of fungal spores. A lot of them, just like bacteria. Some of them are very important, others are some are not beneficial. some of course they cause diseases, but like now these ones you can see how they cause. That's how they cause decomposition. You can see it is decomposing, and this structure you need to get it. You need to get that structure quite often. We ask you to draw on and name. Now we need to look at the comparison of external and internal digestion. External occurs in the mold we have seen. External. Internal digestion occurs in all animals. All animals. I would say most animals, like human beings, we call it internal. But don't confuse it with the intracellular and the extracellular digestion. Intracellular. In human beings, digestion takes place outside the cells. It is extracellular. But in other organisms, like the amoeba, digestion takes place inside the cell. So we say it is intracellular. What we are comparing here is the external digestion and the internal digestion, not between the cells. So you need to take note of that. So external occurs in molds, in fungi, while internal occurs in most organisms. This is part of digestion of nutrition. Hopefully people have not gone. Hopefully, can you hear me, people?
Yes, we
You are
can.
on and off.
Please read this through for us if you hear.
Many fungi, for instance,
External
use external digestion in which food is digested from the outside through digestive enzymes that digest the food material and then absorb through diffusion. With internalization, organisms digest their food in a closed system, such as the digestive tract, as in those of many
animals.
Okay, we had 2 or 3 people reading through. The key point there is that as we have mentioned, the fungi secrete the material when it has been digested, the food nutrients are absorbed. For the case of animals, then digestion is within the closed system, within the digestive tract, as those of many animals. So this one now, we end the first part of nutrition, which is the nutrition in animals. Next time I think we shall bring nutrition in the plants. And we have reached, unless there are some questions. Are there some questions?
Yes, there are some questions. Maybe you can take on this.
The use of animal salt.
If you eat mold by mistake, what happens to your stomach?
Sorry? If you
eat molded food or bread, what happens to your stomach? Like, is it beneficial or it won't be?
Somebody had asked that in the chat room. Maybe we can now answer it here. Bread mold is not so poisonous, and in many times we eat it together with bread unknowingly, and it not cause you any harm. However, if it is a lot of it, you never know. It may cause you a problem. But we know There are other fungus that are poisonous. There's not to be eaten. You remember mold is an example of fungus. And there are other examples like mushroom that we eat. So there are those that are poisonous, there are others that are not poisonous, and bread mold is not among those ones that are poisonous.
Do the organisms
Otherwise, many of us eat it while at various stages of growth, and it will have affected us. And then number two, somebody is asking in the chat room, what is the relevance of the water? Does it provide anything? Water is required for the germination of the spores. You remember the teacher told you, there are spores that are in the air, which may fall on the bread, and they need to germinate. For them to germinate, they need water. And number two, once they have germinated, they will need also that medium of water for the process of digestion, because they need to secrete enzymes onto the food, onto the bread, and that bread must somehow be softened. So they need that. Apart from water, they also need the availability of oxygen. So if there's no oxygen and no water, then you expect the spores to germinate. That explains why in your rooms, once you clean your rooms, you make sure that it is dry. Otherwise, things like belts, shoes, which is leather, they will soon grow mold on it. So to avoid that, make sure that it is dry. Even your fingers, when you clean up, you make sure that your fingers, your hands are dry. Otherwise, we also have fungus that grow only on our palms, especially under the nails. That may bring problems for us. But for this particular case, we're looking at the mold. Any other one other question, which is not from the chat room here? Yes, please.
Excuse me, teacher. So
Yes,
is it the moisture that holds the spores? Because when we toast bread, we remove the moisture, and is it the moisture in food that contains the spores? Because when we remove, when we toast bread, we expel the moisture. So does it contribute also?
You remember the teacher told you there are spores everywhere. As we talk now, there is in space, in the air, a lot of spores. So why do we toast the bread? Two reasons. One, yes, as you said, to eliminate moisture that might have been in the bread, but more importantly, also to kill to destroy any spores that may be there. Eliminate water so that spores cannot germinate, and then because of the heat, any spores that might have been there can also destroy the spores. So the spores are normally floating in the air.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, I think we can stop here.
Okay.
Yes.
Teacher.
Yes. Bye
Teacher,
bye.
the next one Google Classroom.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Last cake.
The